If you've ever been misunderstood, overlooked, talked about, counted out, or pushed to your limit and still had to show up with grace on your face, this message is for you. Because the truth is, life will try you. People will test you. Situations will provoke you. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your anointing responding to distractions that were never assigned to your destiny. There is a power that comes when you learn to act as if nothing bothers you. Not because you don't feel it, not because it didn't hurt, not because you're pretending it never happened, but because you've decided that your peace is too expensive to be purchased by petty opinions. You've decided that your calling is too great to be reduced to reacting to every whisper, every shade, every sideways look. Some of you have been fighting battles that don't even require your participation. You've been defending yourself in rooms where God never asked you to explain yourself. You've been losing sleep over conversations that heaven has already dismissed. And today I came to remind you composure is a weapon. Silence is a strategy. Emotional discipline is a form of spiritual maturity. When you act as if nothing bothers you, you confuse the enemy. When you refuse to react, you regain control. When you stop announcing your wounds, you give them space to heal. Because not every attack deserves an audience, and not every offense deserves a response. Sometimes the greatest flex is your unbothered spirit. See, growth looks like restraint. Growth looks like choosing peace over proving a point. Growth looks like smiling when you could snap, walking away when you could argue, praying when you could post. And I know that's not easy. I know it takes strength to hold your tongue when your emotions are loud. But there is a version of you that is so secure, so anchored, so focused that chaos can knock on your door and you won't even answer. This isn't about being passive. This isn't about suppressing your truth. This is about mastering your reactions so your reactions don't master you. It's about understanding that every time you react out of impulse, you hand over your power. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you choose dignity over drama, you step into a higher level of authority. So today, we're talking about how to move in rooms without absorbing every vibration, how to stand tall when criticized, how to remain steady when tested, how to act as if nothing bothers you, because what God is building in you is bigger than what's trying to break you. And if you're ready to level up emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, lean in, because this message is going to challenge you, stretch you, and remind you who you are when you stop reacting and start reigning. Master your reactions before they master you, because the truth is most battles are not lost in the moment of opposition. They are lost in the moment of impulse. It is not what they said that defines you. It is how you responded that reveals you. It is not the pressure that destroys purpose. It is unmanaged emotion under pressure. And if you are going to walk into the fullness of who you are called to be, you cannot afford to be emotionally hijacked by every inconvenience, every criticism, every misunderstanding, every delay. There is a version of you that reacts quickly, defensively, emotionally. That version wants to clap back, explain, prove, defend, justify. That version feels the heat rise in your chest and the words rush to your tongue before wisdom has a chance to speak. And for a long time, you may have believed that reaction was strength. You thought standing your ground meant saying everything you felt the moment you felt it. You thought silence meant weakness. But growth begins when you realize that discipline is louder than drama. Mastering your reactions does not mean you do not feel. It means you feel deeply but choose wisely. It means you acknowledge the irritation but refuse to let it drive. It means you recognize the trigger but decide it will not control your behavior. Because when you react without reflection, you give temporary emotions permanent consequences. A moment of anger can damage a relationship that took years to build. A single impulsive response can close a door that patience would have kept open. You have to understand that not every thought deserves expression and not every emotion deserves execution. There are feelings that come simply to test your maturity. There are situations that surface not to break you, but to expose where you still need growth. And every time you pause instead of react, you pass a test that once would have defeated you. The world will provoke you. People will misunderstand you. Some will project their insecurities onto you. Some will question your motives. Some will attempt to bait you into arguments that distract you from your purpose. And if you are not careful, you will spend your energy fighting battles that were designed to drain you. But when you master your reactions, you conserve your strength for what truly matters. Self-control is not glamorous. It is quiet. It is internal. No one applauds you for the text you did not send. No one celebrates the argument you refused to engage in. No one sees the restraint it took to smile and walk away. But that invisible discipline is building visible strength. Every time you choose composure over chaos, You are reinforcing your authority over your own life. Your reactions are a reflection of your internal state. If you are constantly reactive, constantly offended, constantly triggered, it may not be the world that needs to change. It may be the inner work that has been postponed. Healing reduces reactivity. Security minimizes defensiveness. Clarity eliminates the need to prove. When you know who you are less disturbed by who others think you are. Mastering your reactions also means recognizing your patterns. What situations consistently upset you? What words consistently trigger you? What environments consistently drain you? Awareness is the first step to transformation. You cannot control what you refuse to confront. And once you identify your triggers, you can prepare for them. Preparation transforms reaction into response. There is power in the pause. A breath between stimulus and response can change the trajectory of a conversation. A moment of silence can prevent a lifetime of regret. When you feel the urge to react, pause. Ask yourself, will this response serve my future or satisfy my pride? Will this escalate the situation or elevate me above it? That single question can shift your entire approach. Emotional mastery is a daily practice. It is choosing not to internalize every opinion. It is deciding that someone else's bad day will not become your bad attitude. It is refusing to allow temporary frustration to create permanent damage. And the more you practice restraint, the stronger it becomes. What once triggered you intensely will eventually barely disturb you. When you master your reactions, you disrupt cycles. Perhaps you come from environments where yelling was normal, where defensiveness was survival, where anger was the primary language, but you do not have to inherit emotional chaos. You can choose a new pattern. You can respond with calm where others expect confrontation. You can answer with clarity where others anticipate confusion. You can embody stability in spaces accustomed to volatility. There is also wisdom in knowing when not to engage. Not every statement requires a rebuttal. Not every accusation requires a defense. Sometimes the most powerful statement is your continued excellence. Sometimes the greatest response is your sustained peace. When you refuse to react, you remove yourself from manipulation. You deny others the satisfaction of controlling your emotional state. Mastering your reactions does not mean becoming cold or detached. It means becoming grounded. It means your emotions inform you but do not dominate you. It means you can feel disappointment without becoming bitter, feel anger without becoming destructive, feel hurt without becoming hardened. It means you process internally before expressing externally. Consider the strength it takes to remain composed in the face of disrespect. That strength is not weakness. It is authority. It is evidence that you are no longer ruled by impulse. It is proof that you value your future more than you value being right in the moment. Because being right feels good temporarily, but being wise builds longevity. As you grow, you will notice that situations that once controlled you no longer have access. Comments that once wounded you no longer penetrate. Delays that once frustrated you no longer disturb your rhythm. That is not because life became easier. It is because you became stronger. You trained your mind to pause. You trained your spirit to remain steady. You trained your mouth to wait for wisdom. When you master your reactions, you reclaim power. You decide that your peace is not negotiable. You decide that your emotional state is not available for public manipulation. You decide that your future is too important to sabotage with impulsive behavior. And with every restrained response, you are reinforcing the truth that you are in control of you. There will still be moments of testing. There will still be opportunities to react. But each time you choose intentional response over emotional reflex, you are stepping into a higher level of maturity. You are proving that your growth is real. You are demonstrating that your peace is practiced. You are embodying the discipline required to handle greater responsibility, greater influence, greater impact. And the more you master your reactions, the less anything else can master you. Silence is power, not weakness. And somewhere along the way, many of us were taught the opposite. We were taught that if you don't respond, you lose. If you don't defend yourself, you look guilty. If you don't argue back, you appear small, so we learn to fill every uncomfortable space with noise. We learn to explain ourselves before anyone even asked. We learn to raise our voices just to prove we had one. But real power does not panic. Real power does not rush to be heard. Real power understands that not every moment requires commentary. Silence is not the absence of strength. It is the evidence of it. It takes far more discipline to hold your tongue than to let it loose. It takes maturity to sit with misunderstanding without scrambling to correct it. It takes confidence to allow your character to speak louder than your defense. And when you begin to understand this, you stop treating silence like surrender and start treating it like strategy. There are moments when responding only fuels the fire. There are conversations designed not for resolution, but for reaction. Some people ask questions not to understand you, but to trap you. Some critics speak not to build you, but to bait you. And if you respond to every provocation, you become exhausted fighting battles that were never meant to be won through words. Silence disrupts that cycle. Silence denies access. Silence shifts the power dynamic. When you are secure in who you are, you do not feel the need to announce it. When you know your truth, you are not threatened by false narratives. When you understand your value, you are not shaken by undervaluation. Silence becomes the posture of someone who is anchored. It becomes the language of someone who trusts that what is real does not need constant reinforcement. Think about how much trouble comes from unnecessary words, words spoken in anger, words spoken in haste, words spoken from ego. Once released, they cannot be retrieved. They echo, they linger, they wound. But silence gives you space. It creates a buffer between emotion and expression. It allows wisdom to catch up with feeling. It gives you time to decide whether what you are about to say will build or break. Silence also reveals who is truly listening and who is simply waiting for their turn to speak. When you refuse to engage in noise, you expose motives, you uncover intentions. You see clearly who thrives on chaos and who values clarity. And in that revelation, you gain discernment. Not every conversation deserves your participation. Not every debate deserves your intellect. Not every accusation deserves your defense. There is a strength and restraint that many people underestimate. When you could respond sharply but choose softness. When you could retaliate but choose stillness. When you could expose but choose privacy. That restraint is not weakness. It is leadership over your own impulses. It is proof that you are not controlled by emotion but guided by intention. Silence protects your energy. Every argument drains. Every unnecessary explanation depletes. Every attempt to prove yourself consumes time you will never get back. But when you choose silence, you conserve that energy for purpose. You redirect your focus from defending your name to building your vision. You move from reaction to creation. There is also a spiritual depth to silence. In quiet moments, clarity surfaces. In stillness, direction emerges. When you are constantly speaking, constantly reacting, constantly responding, you cannot hear the subtle wisdom rising within you. Silence creates room for reflection. It invites introspection. It strengthens intuition. And the more comfortable you become with quiet, the less desperate you feel to fill it. Some of you are learning that the loudest person in the room is not always the strongest. Often the one who speaks least observes most. The one who listens carefully understands deeply. The one who pauses before answering leads effectively. Silence gives you information. It allows you to study patterns. It reveals inconsistencies. It sharpens your awareness. Silence is also a boundary. When you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, you protect your peace. When you stop engaging in circular conversations that never lead anywhere productive, you protect your time. When you refuse to entertain disrespect, you protect your dignity. Silence can say, I will not participate in this without uttering a single word. There will be times when silence feels uncomfortable, when everything in you wants to defend your reputation, when your pride urges you to correct the record, when your emotions demand immediate release. But maturity asks a different question. Will speaking improve this situation or will it intensify it? Will my words create clarity or will they create more confusion? And sometimes the most powerful answer is to say nothing at all. Silence does not mean avoidance. It does not mean suppression. It does not mean ignoring necessary conversations. There are moments that require truth to be spoken. There are injustices that require voices to rise. But even then, the power lies in intentional speech, not reactive noise. Silence teaches you to choose your words carefully. It refines your communication. It ensures that when you do speak, your voice carries weight. When you are always talking, people stop listening. But when you are selective, your words matter. When you are measured, your statements resonate. When you are thoughtful, your impact deepens. Silence cultivates presence. It builds an aura of calm authority. It communicates that you are not easily shaken. And sometimes silence is the clearest response to disrespect. It communicates that you will not lower yourself to meet negativity. It signals that you are unbothered. It demonstrates that your peace cannot be manipulated. There is something unsettling about someone who refuses to react. It removes the drama others may be expecting. It shifts the atmosphere entirely. Silence also strengthens self-trust. When you do not feel pressure to justify every decision, you begin to trust your judgment more deeply. When you do not need constant validation through conversation, you cultivate internal confidence. You become less dependent on external affirmation and more anchored in internal assurance. As you grow, you will realize that silence is not empty. It is full. It is full of observation, full of discernment, full of patience, full of wisdom forming beneath the surface. It is a discipline that refines your character. It is a practice that stabilizes your emotions. It is a tool that sharpens your influence. There is power in the quiet nod, the composed expression, the steady breath. There is strength in allowing someone to speak without interruption, even when you disagree. There is authority in responding only when necessary. Silence teaches you that not everything deserves access to your voice. When you begin to embrace silence as power, you stop fearing it. You stop interpreting it as weakness. You stop rushing to defend yourself in every situation. You start recognizing that your composure is louder than argument. Your consistency is louder than accusation. Your character is louder than rumor. And the more comfortable you become with silence, the more unshakable you become in the face of noise. The more disciplined you become with your words, the more intentional you become with your influence, the more you understand that silence is not submission but strength, not avoidance but awareness, not weakness but wisdom in motion. Protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Your peace is not casual, it is not common. It is not something you stumble into by accident. It is something you cultivate, something you fight for, something you learn to value after life has shown you what chaos feels like. And once you have tasted the stability of a calm mind and a settled heart, you begin to understand that peace is not just a feeling, it is a foundation. For too long, many of us treated peace like a luxury instead of a necessity. We entertained conversations that disturbed us. We tolerated environments that drained us. We stayed connected to people who thrived on drama and then wondered why our spirits felt heavy. But peace requires protection. It requires boundaries. It requires discernment. It requires the courage to say no to anything that consistently disrupts your internal balance. Your peace is sacred because it fuels your clarity. When your mind is calm, you make better decisions. When your heart is settled, you respond wisely. When your spirit is steady, you see situations accurately instead of emotionally. But when peace is compromised, everything becomes distorted. Small problems feel overwhelming. Minor inconveniences feel catastrophic. Simple misunderstandings escalate unnecessarily. Protecting your peace means recognizing what disturbs it. Pay attention to how your body reacts in certain rooms. Notice how your energy shifts around certain conversations. Observe which interactions leave you inspired and which leave you depleted. Awareness is protection. You cannot guard what you refuse to acknowledge. Sometimes protecting your peace means walking away from arguments you could win. It means declining invitations that come with hidden tension. It means unfollowing, muting, disconnecting from sources of negativity. Not because you are weak, but because you are wise. You understand that constant exposure to chaos eventually erodes stability. Peace also requires internal work. It is not only about who you remove from your life, but what you remove from your mind. Old grudges disturb peace. Unresolved bitterness agitates the heart. Constant comparison steals contentment. If you are serious about protecting your peace, you must release what no longer serves your growth. You cannot hold on to resentment and expect serenity. There will be moments when people misunderstand your boundaries. They may call you distant when you are simply protecting your energy. They may call you cold when you are simply choosing calm. They may interpret your withdrawal from drama as indifference, but you are not responsible for how others interpret your healing. You are responsible for maintaining it. Protecting your peace means refusing to internalize everything you hear. Opinions are endless. Criticism is constant, but not every voice deserves space in your mind. If you allow every comment to settle in your thoughts, your peace will always be at risk. Discern which feedback is constructive and which is projection. Accept what helps you grow and release what attempts to shrink you. Your peace is also tied to your priorities. When you are clear about what truly matters, distractions lose their power. When your focus is aligned with purpose, petty conflicts seem insignificant. The more grounded you are in your direction, the less you are shaken by detours. Peace thrives in clarity. There is strength in choosing calm over confrontation. There is wisdom in delaying response until emotion settles. There is maturity in saying, "This is not worth my energy." Not every situation deserves your reaction. Not every problem deserves your immediate attention. Sometimes protecting your peace means postponing engagement until you can approach it with stability. You must also protect your peace from self-sabotage. Negative self-talk is just as disruptive as external criticism. When you constantly doubt yourself, replay mistakes, or anticipate worst-case scenarios, you create internal turbulence. Speak to yourself with compassion. Correct yourself without condemnation. Growth does not require self-destruction. Protecting your peace requires consistency. It is not a one-time decision. It is a daily discipline. Each morning, you choose what you will entertain. Each conversation, you decide how deeply you will engage. Each conflict, you determine whether it deserves escalation or calm resolution. Peace is preserved through repeated intentional choices. There will be seasons when protecting your peace feels lonely. You may outgrow relationships that once felt comfortable. You may distance yourself from habits that once felt familiar. Growth can feel isolating at first, but isolation for healing is better than connection that corrodes. Temporary discomfort is worth long-term stability. Your peace is sacred because it directly affects your capacity. A restless mind cannot create effectively. A troubled heart cannot love fully. A chaotic internal world cannot sustain external success. If you aspire to handle greater responsibility, greater influence, greater opportunity, you must cultivate a peaceful foundation strong enough to support it. Protecting your peace does not mean avoiding accountability. It does not mean ignoring necessary conversations. It does not mean pretending problems do not exist. It means addressing them without losing yourself in them. It means confronting issues with composure instead of chaos. It means choosing resolution over reaction. You will notice that when your peace is intact, you become less reactive. Situations that once triggered you intensely now barely disturb your equilibrium. Comments that once felt offensive now feel irrelevant. Delays that once frustrated you now feel manageable. That shift is evidence of growth. It is proof that your internal environment has become stronger than external pressure. Peace also enhances your presence. People feel calm around someone who is internally settled. They sense stability. They recognize steadiness. Your composure becomes contagious. Your calm becomes influential. When you protect your peace, you create an atmosphere others can breathe in. Do not underestimate how valuable your peace is. It is not something to trade for temporary validation. It is not something to sacrifice for being right. It is not something to compromise for approval. Once lost, it takes effort to restore. So guard it intentionally. There will always be opportunities to lose your peace. There will always be unexpected challenges. But when you treat your peace as sacred, you handle those challenges differently. You pause before reacting. You evaluate before engaging. You choose your words carefully. You protect your emotional state deliberately. And the more you protect your peace, the stronger it becomes. The more you prioritize calm, the less chaos controls you. The more you honor your internal stability, the more unshakable you become in unpredictable environments. Your peace becomes a shield. It becomes a filter. It becomes a quiet strength that supports every area of your life. When you begin to value your peace as sacred, you stop apologizing for protecting it. You stop explaining why you need space. You stop justifying your boundaries. You recognize that peace is not selfish. It is necessary. It is not avoidance. It is alignment. It is not weakness. It is wisdom applied daily in conversations, in decisions, in relationships, in responses, in the way you carry yourself through rooms that once unsettled you. Stay focused on not provocation, because distractions rarely announce themselves as distractions. They show up disguised as offenses, misunderstandings, delays, criticism, and opportunities to prove yourself. They tempt you to shift your attention from what you are building to what is trying to bait you. And if you are not careful, you will invest more energy defending your ego than developing your assignment. Purpose requires concentration. It demands vision. It calls for consistency. But provocation is loud. It is emotional. It is urgent. It pulls at your pride. It whispers that you need to respond immediately, that you need to correct the narrative, that you need to set the record straight. And while you are busy reacting, your purpose waits unattended. You must recognize that not everything that demands your attention deserves your focus. Just because something irritates you does not mean it is important. Just because someone challenges you does not mean you need to engage. Just because you can respond does not mean you should. Staying focused on purpose means filtering every opportunity through intention. Purpose is long-term. Provocation is momentary. Purpose builds slowly and steadily. Provocation burns quickly and fades. When you allow temporary irritation to interrupt long-term vision, you trade legacy for satisfaction. You sacrifice progress for pride. And often by the time the emotional storm passes, you realize the distraction cost more than it was worth. There will always be people who misunderstand your journey. There will be critics who question your methods. There will be competitors who attempt to provoke insecurity. But your responsibility is not to manage their perception. Your responsibility is to manage your direction. The more focused you are on where you are going, the less you are disturbed by what is happening around you. Staying focused on purpose means understanding your priorities. What are you building? What are you becoming? What matters most in this season? When your priorities are clear, distractions lose power. You begin to ask different questions. Instead of asking, how do I respond to this? You ask, does this move me closer to my goal? If the answer is no, you release it. Provocation often appeals to emotion. It triggers anger, defensiveness, insecurity. It invites you into debates that feel urgent but accomplish nothing. But purpose requires emotional discipline. It requires you to remain steady when others are unstable. It requires you to continue working when others are watching for your reaction. There is strength in refusing to be pulled off course. Imagine how much further you would be if you did not respond to every distraction. Imagine how much energy you would conserve if you ignored what was designed to irritate you. Every time you choose focus over reaction, you strengthen your resilience. Purpose also requires humility. Sometimes provocation exposes areas where your ego still wants validation. It reveals how easily you can be triggered by comparison or criticism. But when you are anchored in purpose, you do not need to win every argument. You do not need to outshine every competitor. You do not need to correct every misconception. Your work speaks. Your consistency speaks. Your growth speaks. Staying focused means guarding your mind. What you consume influences your concentration. Constant exposure to negativity, gossip, and controversy clouds clarity. If you want to protect your purpose, you must be selective about your input. Feed your mind with what strengthens your vision, not what fuels unnecessary conflict. There will be moments when provocation feels personal. It may target your identity, your history, your vulnerabilities. But purpose invites you to rise above personal offense and remain committed to collective impact. You are not here merely to defend yourself. You are here to fulfill something greater. Focus is a discipline. It is choosing to return your attention to what matters every time it wanders. It is training yourself to ignore noise. It is deciding that your destiny is too important to be derailed by temporary frustration. When distractions appear, you do not panic. You evaluate. You decide. You move forward intentionally. Staying focused on purpose also means accepting that you cannot do everything. Every opportunity is not aligned with your assignment. Every invitation is not necessary. Every debate is not productive. Focus sometimes requires saying no